Hello everyone, this is Jacob Popia, the producer of The Apex. This week, Jan and RJ both sit down with just a blue-collar guy trying to make a difference. His name is Mr. Jon Deitz. They go into three main points. 1. Kind is free. 2. Burning cars and umbrellas. Lastly, number 3 is it only takes 7 to 12 seconds to change the world. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
Welcome to another episode of the Apex podcast with all of us here at JJD Thoughts. This is our second episode of 2019. So today we're going to be interviewing a gentleman that I met by total chance. We'll explain that story a little bit more when we start to dive into everything that we got going on. But today I'd like to open up the podcast with a reading from Jocko Willink's Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. If you guys know anything about me at this point, you know that I'm 110% a trooper and believe that discipline indeed equals freedom. So this reading is on page 83 for those of you that own the book. It's called Hold the Line, and I think that it brings to life the mentality of the guest that we have on the show with us today. Instead of going backwards, instead of decaying, get stronger, get better. Grow and learn, develop, and live. Live in defiance of the weakness and in rebellion against the decay. Fight them as they creep with their offers of instant gratification and immediate rewards. Fight them for every inch, every time they try to take. Do not surrender any ground, ever. Now, right before we turned on the microphones to record this episode, our guest said that his inner dog has no quit. And in a conversation leading up to the interview today, he also stated that we were going to strap on our helmets and go at it, no holes barred. We're going to let it fly. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
RJ.
Hi, everybody. Glad
Welcome
to be
back.
back again for a second time in a row.
What? He's back again, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be hearing a lot more of his voice moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So, John, why don't you, I'll let you kind of take the floor for a second. Why don't you, explain a little bit of, from your perspective, how we ended up coming about meeting?
Well, it's real simple. We were, I was going down the road. I hadn't been to this restaurant in some 10 years for breakfast. I was hungry, so I pulled in, and I was sitting at the bar eating breakfast. And a little bit later, this guy walked in nurse fatigues and sat down next to me, and I could tell that he was exhausted. And so I said to him, this total stranger, I said, man, it looks like you need some coffee. And with that, we started to chat, and I started giving him some advice, as I do many young guys, because I'm not that young anymore. And through that came a really quality conversation back and forth, which led to Jan revealing that he has this podcast, and we may want to talk sometime.
Yeah. No, we literally, so I was on my way home from the hospital. I had just gotten off at 12. Got off at 7 a.m., and I actually made it back to my apartment when I decided that I wasn't sleepy enough to go to bed, so I was going to go get some pancakes, as everybody knows I love so much. And I turned around and went back to Samantha's and sat down, and random dude at the bar is just like, man, kind of like nonchalantly, almost like, dude, you look like crap. you need
Without coming out and being, hey,
Right.
you look like crap, but
you
here's
need
a pot
some
of coffee.
Right, you need some coffee. And I was like, yeah, dude. It just started talking about work and everything else, and told me that his daughter was in nursing school, and everything kind of just snowballed out of there. I finished my food, and we sat there talking for 15 minutes after my breakfast was done, and then I went home and went into a coma. But I think a week later we met at Papa Euro's, and also talked for a couple of hours at that point. But
See, that's crazy. That's
It was
crazy
absolutely-
to me.
yeah, absolutely
'Cause most people nowadays are afraid to talk to. You stand in an elevator and everybody stares at the door waiting for it to open, or stares up at the ceiling because they're afraid to, say.
Yeah, you're
hi
not
and
allowed
be
to make
friendly.
eye contact in an elevator. You didn't know that?
Well, but like, I just by hearing that story, there's been a ton of times since even when I was little, because my parents will tell you, regardless of age, I was never afraid to talk to anybody.
I
Didn't
would never
matter
see
if,
that.
right? But I've had many conversations like that with people that I don't know that have stuck with me more than people that I do personally know. And I've never understood why, just because you've never met somebody, why you should be so terrified to talk to them. And just hearing a story like that where it's like, hey, just a random act of kindness because it looks like somebody was having a rough day has turned into something like come this far. That's crazy to me. It's awesome.
Every time I get an opportunity, I talk to a lot of people, and every time I get an opportunity, especially young guys, to impart some wisdom, they have the option of taking it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been scuffed up and nicked up and got dusty enough in my life that I think if I can pass some of that on, that maybe you can avoid it. I'll be glad to share it with you. And so that's really all that happened.
I feel like more people should have that mentality. It's to me that kind of goes along with like the pay it forward. You've been there. There's nothing hurts by passing that information down. And like you said, take it or leave it. But if at some point you can take that, then that person can take it and pass it down, then I think you've done a great good upon a lot of people.
Hopefully, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, and that's what today's episode is going to be a lot about is some of those little tidbits of advice that Jon has to offer. So what is your catchphrase? Like the title of this episode is going to be your catchphrase about the gas company, but why don't you explain people why you use that?
Well, I normally wouldn't bring it up at a place like this, but it's because it's the truth. I'm just a tired old dusty hump from the gas company. I'm a guy that's just used to dig graves. I've farmed. I've just worked my way to wherever it is I am. I worked pretty hard to get to wherever it is I am. Everybody wants to come off, oftentimes people want to come off like they got something going on. And I just want to be honest. And whatever life has taught me. But at the end of the day, I'm just an old hump from the gas company that just tries to make a living and take care of my wife and kids.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I've talked to that don't understand why they are being invited to come on the podcast. And Jon was one of those people that like you said, I'm just an old hump from the gas company. Why am I worthy of sitting behind this microphone? I've talked to other individuals that we have coming up that are going to be coming on the show that are like, I don't know if I have anything to offer. Like I'm listening to these people that talk that have been on your show so far, and I have nothing to compare. But when I first met Jon, he's kind of had this, idea of starting to write a blog, or starting to put out content of these tidbits of advice that I got, so graciously offered to me at the Samantha's bar, and then again at Papa Euro's, and then again at Denny's. I got a random text message. I got off of work at, I think it was 7 p.m, or it might have been later than that we ended up meeting and going to Denny's to have dinner. And that was after I took care of a patient that ended up becoming a life bank, and I was like holding back tears in this Denny's, and he was offering advice at that point. But that's what I wanted to try to hone in on today. So today we're going to go over 10, maybe a couple or more. I added in a couple bullet points that me and RJ kind of selected out of an extensive list of bullets that Jon had come up with.
All which were great.
It was hard to pick.
Very hard to file those down.
Yeah. So if post this episode, Jon's going to be writing for the Apex for a little bit, and then we're going to be branching out and getting him his own page and his own blog and everything. So if you're curious about more of these bullets, there's going to be more posts, and he's going to be starting to get out there more. But this is kind of his introduction to the world. Okay,
Which I think to be very happy to be a part of.
Exactly, it was honored, to be the introduction. of a man that I think is going to put out a bunch of content that's going to change a lot of perceptions, especially in this area. So we'll just start off with the first one. Okay.
Right.
So the first one that we have here selected is "Kind is Free." And I picked that one because there was a study that came out, and it was like the number one, associated characteristic of high-level CEOs that were successful was kindness, and then under that, empathy. But most people think it's like courage or bravery or something along that. But why does the sentence "kind is free" mean so much to you?
Because we live in such a hostile environment where we all live. There's road rage, there are people that are angry in the grocery store, and I served on my local school board. And there's several years that we were unable to pay or give raises to our staff that were working very hard, and they were noble, honorable, kind people. And I said, listen, the least that we can do is just be kind, And so each half of the year, I would meet with our superintendent, and I would say, please tell all the people that work for you to be kinder to those that work for them than they've ever been before. And 6 months later, we would do it again. And just be kind. Harmony is so incredibly difficult to attain.
Especially now, like you were saying.
And it's far more difficult to maintain. So you can get harmony for a little while. Like in my house with my family.
I like that a lot.
I do not tolerate, nobody's being disrespectful to each other. Yes, we have our differences. Yes, we have our arguments. But they're arguments with a level of respect. And we get to go around once. And we're not being disrespectful. We're not calling names. We're addressing the issue. We're moving forward. And at the end, when it's all said and done, then we say, hey, okay, here's what we learned. Now let's move on, and let's move on happy. And with that, you've met my family.
Right.
We pal around like a crew everywhere we go. We have fun. We laugh. My daughter's away at college. She was telling me the other day how much she misses running errands with the family. Hey, I'm going to Sam's Club. Everybody piles in. We all go to Sam's Club. Hey, I'm going to Home Depot. Everybody piles in. We all go to Home Depot. And it's just a level of, I just think that kindness is so incredibly lacking that I just try to tell everybody, I'm not saying I don't get upset. I'm not saying I'm not disrespectful at times. I'm just saying there's a tone of kindness that you should always try to obtain and try to and let me say one more thing too about that. There has been times in my life when I have been short with my old wife, or I've said things that I wish I wouldn't have, maybe in front of my daughters, okay? What I find imperative, if you're really a man of integrity, a person of character, that you apologize in the same venue in front of the same crowd that you were disrespectful. And so there's been times when I would sit my girls down with my wife and say, remember yesterday when I said this? I am so sorry for that. And girls, you need to know that what I said to Mom was not right. And I'm apologizing to her, and I'm apologizing to you as well. Because it's so simple to slip off and go, hey, hon, come here, man, I'm so sorry for what I said the other day. But my girls never see it. Or if I say it in front of friends or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're man enough to pop off, you should be man enough or person enough to apologize in the same venue. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mic drop.
No, you're fine. I've done stuff like that, and I've never thought of it that way, but I completely agree with what you're saying, because you don't know how that incident then affected the other people that witnessed it, that were no part of it.
Yeah, like the bystanders.
Yeah, and to be man enough, like you said, to rope everybody back together that was there for that incident,
Everybody.
and then right your own wrongs. That sets a bar for a certain type of character for those people, for yourself, or the other parties involved.
It's easy for me to sit here in front of you guys and tell you about acts of character or whatever. But the question is, when you get alone with my family, would they tell you the same thing? It's important that I live a life in a crowd that I live in private.
Mm-hmm.
And many people don't want to do that. Like I said, they'll pop off, and then if they feel like apologizing,
Then
they'll go back and apologize quietly. But I say, no, you don't. You get the same people, same volume, same lights. Let's sit down and let's say, show the fact that you're able to apologize sincerely for your shortcomings.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Just that concept in general. Like if you're willing to, like you said, pop off in a certain area, then you should be willing to. Yeah, I agree with. I mean, just being able to apologize for your shortcomings and stuff, but more importantly, like you said, in that same stage, that same venue means more. Like if I were to mess up in front of a patient, and then only apologize to the patient's family member, but never actually say anything to the patient again, the patient never knows that I was, apologetic or anything like that. And it never actually fixes anything. It just makes me feel better because I apologized to somebody.
I think you need to chase the ripple. However far it goes, that's what you need to apologize.
Nip it there, so
Right.
it doesn't go any further.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kindness free. So the next one that we have here is so like me and RJ both picked this one. I'm super, super curious about this because I have absolutely no idea where
Right now,
where
I
this
don't
one
either.
came
Yeah,
from.
you're like, which one are we talking about?
Yeah, so this one is just when you think you've been watching the cat, you find out the cat's been watching you.
Right.
So that one, I'm like
My girlfriend has 4 cats. It's true. That's 100% true.
100% cat.
Yeah.
that's a lot of kitty. Well, I guess it could be worse. You could have a lot more cats than 4, but
Well,
do they all watch you all the time?
they watch everything. That's the
I
creepy
feel like
part.
I feel like cats know all.
Yeah.
Like they're actually secretly like a more superior race than humans. They like actually run the household.
Oh no, they do. They have us picking up their poop and feeding them every day.
Yeah, that's true.
They got us by the balls.
Okay, so
But
John,
I'm sure
what
that's
is-
not what you're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
unless we nailed it right on the head.
No. All right, what do we got?
There again, I think it's just more of a character thing. So many people act like they're fooling somebody or getting away with something, and then when you least expect it, you find out maybe there's a chance somebody who's smarter than you and is watching you do this whole charade.
Knowing better in the end.
No, yeah, and and then you're like, "Pff, what an idiot." Just be straight, be honest, be effective, first time through, and then you don't have to worry about somebody watching what you're doing. My dad was always about doing the job, doing it right. Let people catch you in the truth. Don't let them catch you in a lie. Make sure that when you do something, when you tell the truth, you tell the truth with detail. And
I
so,
like that.
so somebody's not going to go, well, I heard about this, and some part's missing, and they question your character. And so, just make sure that what you're doing is straight and right. And should you find out that somebody's been watching you, you're clear.
Yeah, so what?
Yeah, it's like good.
You're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do that, though. I mean, I'm not going to say that I haven't done that I haven't looked at someone and said, oh, yeah, things are great. I'm doing this and I'm doing that and everything's fine. But then I go home, I'm like literally not doing any of that. None of that is happening. I just didn't want to have to tell the person that.
I feel like that's every year at Christmas or Thanksgiving with my family. They're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing this and this," and I'm really just like
flying to the moon next
like
month.
eating ice cream on my couch, watching Netflix.
Grey's Anatomy.
Right. Why don't you have a wife yet? Grandma, stop asking me that.
I will say that I've been in a situation like that, that someone knew better, and it is, like you said, it's real kick in the rear end to then, realize like, wow, I monkeyed around and, tried to, not so much, I guess, show off, but, tried to make myself look better when the whole time they already knew that none of that was going on, or whatever you said was just a charade, and then you're like, whoa,
You can.
oops.
So, I mean, you've been married for a while, and you've been dating Steph for a while. Mm-hmm. This is something that just being a nurse and being around Type A personality women 24/7, I've kind of picked up on a little bit. So I'm walking dangerous waters here because I'm saying this on air, right? But I think that, guys and girls both, I guess, use this all the time. Where if you question somebody about something, you already know the answer to, just to see if they'll tell you the truth about it. Right. And it's like 110% of the time when I got in trouble as a kid with my mother, when she would ask me what was going on, she already knew what had happened because I lived in a town with 2 stop signs and a stoplight. So the lady down the street saw me running the stop sign, smoking a cigarette or something like that, and my mom already knew what was going on.
That's another one of my sayings I've said for years, is don't ask the question unless you already know the answer. Then you find out who's telling the truth.
I like that too.
Steph is a master at that.
I bet. That's what I was
My
going to say.
girlfriend is a master at that. If she asks a question, but it works both ways. It's like if she asks something, I already know that she knows. So it's like, oh, like I'm in big trouble now. Why'd you even bother?
Right. Oh, man. Yeah, that's funny. When you start to realize that, that people are doing that, it's like, oh, man, I should really be on my toes
Well,
here.
I'll just show myself out.
Right. Yeah. I won't.
See you later.
I'm just going to go get some food. I'll be back. I won't let the door hit me on the way out.
That's funny.
It's like, oh, should I make my bed on the couch then, or is everything?
Right.
Okay, I digress. So number 3 here is, I like this one. So me and you personally talked about this one when we were at Denny's. And this is one that I pulled out of here. And it's from a burning car to an umbrella, every little bit helps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not here to pat myself on the back in any way, but this is just the truth. Years ago, I was a firefighter. I loved and specialized in the heavy rescue part. And so when that stuff's just always on your mind. One time I was going on pulling on the ramp on I-70. I looked back and I saw a guy's car smoking, and I looked back and it was smoking more. Looked back, how you go down the ramp, and finally I said, so I turned and I went back wrong way on the interstate to drive up to check on this guy because he was slumped over the steering wheel.
Oh, no.
And so I pulled my vehicle way past to make sure that it was safe, and I ran up and I started to talk to the guy, and he was, incoherent, and finally I pulled him out of the car. Well, next thing, Columbus Fire's there, the whole, interstate shut down, the car is fully involved, and in the confusion of everybody talking to everybody, I slipped over, got back in my truck, and drove away. They never knew my name, never knew who I was.
Batman.
I didn't want, and so, I always laughed and said that one of these days this guy's going to be on Oprah talking about there was this angel that pulled me out of the
That
car.
sounds exactly like one of those episodes.
Right.
Like, this mysterious, all-white figure came out of nowhere and carried me, bridal carried me over out of safety, and you're like, that was me?
Right. So there you could make an argument that I potentially saved this guy's life. Somebody else might have came and did it too, but potentially say, okay, so that's the one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is I knew a guy that had a tow truck shop, and as he would tow cars in, he would clean them out, and one thing he would save was umbrellas. So one day I took, 5 or 6 umbrellas, knowing that I would hand them out. I didn't want them for myself, but I would hand them out. And so I also, with a wife and 2 daughters, know how important makeup and hair and being presentable, especially in high school, is. So one day I was driving up the road over by our town in Massillon, and there was this girl walking up the road. And she had looked to be like maybe a senior, and all of a sudden came one of those sideways blowing rains.
Oh.
And
Takes you off your feet.
Yeah, I jumped out of the truck with a big golf umbrella that I had gotten for free, and I ran over, popped the thing open, handed it to her. I went, jumped back in my truck, and drove away. Same thing. She's got to go.
What was that?
Where'd this guy come from? But it was her getting wet in one case from the rain, and the other case was a guy potentially burning to death. But so it doesn't matter if it's pulling somebody out of a car or handing them an umbrella in the rain. Every little bit helps. And just like the other one, I drove away. To this day, she has no idea. I didn't do it
For recognition.
for accolades.
Right. I think that's the key point.
I just did it because I wanted to help a little bit. If I used to tell my girls all the time, hey girls, in the morning before I leave for work, hey girls, yeah, Dad, should the opportunity present itself today, make a difference in someone's life. It might have been picking up a crayon. It might have been holding a door for a teacher. It might have been any, menial task. But when you're the one carrying the overhead projector and you can't get through the door,
It means a lot.
it means a lot. And so
Right.
every little bit just helps. There's no crime in being kind.
Yeah, it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, let's just be kind. And so that's what that came from.
It's the little things.
It's
I
the
mean,
little
in some
things.
case, like the gentleman in his car, the big things, but in others,
Right.
sometimes it's just an umbrella.
Right. And like I said, you don't get a chance to do CPR every day.
No.
But if you look, there'll be an old woman that's $3 short at the cash register. You give them the $3.
Yeah.
You know, there's the person, like I said, I saw a couple one time, an elderly couple, both struggling to get the gentleman's walker in the car. Well, how hard was it me to hold the door, ask them to step back, fold the walker, set it in the car, help them in the cars, and went on. I didn't change the world. I didn't save anybody's life, but to them, it was appreciated.
It was big.
Made their day easier.
See, that's that.
It's all perception. From
It
those
is,
people.
and people with those that I think there is a lot of people like yourself that do a lot of good for a lot of people that go unrecognized because they don't want that type of. They're just doing it because they know it's the right thing to do and they enjoy doing it.
Plus, let me go.
Well, I think that makes the difference between the person. Like, if he was sitting here, you know, talking about it in a manner that it's like, I did this, I did that, I did this, I, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, then the perception we would be getting on our end, as far as our input, you know, would be, you know, this guy's cocky. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to. He's showing very well how to walk that line between like cockiness and boastfulness and quiet confidence, where it's like, you know, not everybody has the balls, figuratively, to pull a gentleman out of a car.
No.
You know what I mean? But, you know, giving somebody an umbrella or helping an old lady with a walker, you know, that stuff to that person, to that old lady, was like the worst thing happening at that point in time, at that day, you know, and then that, you know, high school senior getting hit with sideways rain, that was the worst thing that was happening to them that day. And then the guy bent over the steering wheel in the car. That was probably the worst thing happening to him that day. So in each one of those person scenarios, one person not asking for anything in return, randomly doing an act of kindness, completely changed the course of their life for, you know, the next 24 hours, the next however long.
Maybe for the rest of their life.
Right,
You never
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for our relationship, however it happened, I've never had this conversation with anyone in my life that I know of, you know?
Right.
So, but the one thing too that I think is that I learned some time ago, and it made me give up on looking for any praise, is Christ cured 10 lepers. Only one said thank you.
Right.
So when I'm out there doing whatever I can do, and you know what, here I get it honest. My dad was that way. My dad was the most helpful guy, and I hope and pray my daughters are both this way. They'll help anybody we can. That's just what we do. But I you know, it's not that it's something that I set out to be like great. I just saw my dad do it over and over and over and over again. And the weaker you were, the more help he would give. You know, and so when you're brought up that way, you know, it just.
Becomes second nature.
Well, and that mentality, I think, is like a sickness. And me and RJ have had multiple conversations about people that we've had the potential to do business with that we're not doing business with purposely because
they're only looking for the praise.
They're
or
looking for
profit.
the praise and profit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like when I was in nursing school, right? There's a specific type of person. I mean, nurses, and I guess college, you know, individuals in general can be really competitive with grades. Where it's like, hey,
Massively.
I got this, you got that. You know, what did you get on this test? How many questions did you get this? Blah, 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 blah. You know, and ironically, we all ended up with the same piece of paper when we graduated. Right. So, but it's like, I would give people my notes. I would do, like, if I knew something better, my dad's a respiratory therapist, so I held tutoring sessions on how to run a ventilator because I'd been around it since I was a little kid. You know, you don't even ask for anything in return for that. Like, it's information. Just give it out. Like, you don't need something in return for everything that you do. And if your entire intention behind being kind to somebody or behind helping somebody is for profit, then it makes you out to be, you know, somebody that there's a very sick mentality where it's like we need to step on people's throats until they're not breathing anymore in order to be successful. When if you flip that, you know, and you say, hey, I'm going to bring you on because I love what your message stands for, and we're going to work together to help you be successful. I tell, you know, RJ all the time, and Mike Eversole, the guy that runs our clothing company, his clothing company that we partnered with, you know, I tell him all the time, focus on the word you, not I. You know, what can I do for you? How can we help you? And what it forms this awesome synergistic relationship where if you show that person that you're willing to help them, they end up wanting to help you. If the relationship is meant to happen, and if not, then maybe it just wasn't supposed to happen in the first place. But
Plus, I always look at guys like Sam Walton and Bill Gates, and I don't think either one of them set out to make a ton of money. I think Sam Walton just loves selling one more pack of socks and pack of underwear, you know?
Yeah.
And Bill Gates was just really into
he's just a super nerd in a garage.
craft.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it just so happens that after you do that long enough, the money just so happens to be a byproduct
Yeah.
of what you come. But your
And
love,
yeah.
your love is really what you're after, and then it just happens to generate as well.
Right, the byproduct. That's what. If the money's the byproduct, then you're chasing it for the right reasons. But if the money is the sole intention, you're
Right,
going to
no
end up
good.
losing yourself.
Right.
It's horrible.
And in my life, there's always been a template that I've told my daughters this all the time. You might go through 2,000 people before you meet anybody that you really connect with. But there's a certain template that fits over that person. And when it fits, involve yourself in that relationship and try to build it and be a good friend, a good, person to them, because you're only going to get 3 or 5 friends in your whole life. So invest in the ones you have. And in my case, I just like good quality people. Doesn't matter their walk. I have friends that have a lot of money. I have friends that have no money. It's got nothing to do with their wealth. It's about what kind of person are they. Mm-hmm. And that's what interests me. So anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. So our next one is kind of, I mean, it's not a cliche, but I think that it's been stated a lot, but we're kind of curious to see what your take is on it and why you listed it personally on your thing. So it says, oftentimes our strengths are our weaknesses.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. I have a wife that is one of the kindest, sweetest human beings you'll ever meet in your whole lifetime. That's a strength. She's kind. But with that kindness, people tend to run over her and take advantage of her. And that's a weakness, you know? And so I've seen that happen over and over again to different people in life where they have this something that they're real non-committal about. Well, maybe they should be more involved. Or maybe, you know what I mean? So in her case, I've seen it so many times, it's like that's just something that you'd like to see somebody work on so they don't get kicked in the shins as often. But at the same time, you wouldn't change the kindness and generosity.
See, that's a hard line.
Yeah,
to
it's a
walk
hard.
down
Yeah,
It's a hard
balance.
line.
Yeah, because it's like you love and you care about that person for that exact quality.
Right.
But then it's like, well, you don't want to see them get walked on, but that would require that trait to be different.
Diminished, yeah.
It's a little bit like a dichotomy where, like, when I was on the board, I would demand kindness.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So how do you do that? You're right. It's a really tough line to walk to where you go, you better not be mean to this person or else. But
I'll be so kind to you.
so
You better watch yourself.
just
you're
a-
gonna,
so nice
you're
to
gonna
you.
end up with chocolates in your locker.
right. So anyway, so it's
Kill
just
them with kindness.
a tough thing.
Yeah,
So, all right,
no.
what's next?
I think that principle. I think honestly, like the recurring theme is just, I mean, kindness, empathy. You know, being able to understand where people are coming from. I mean, a lot of these are just that's what it keeps relating back to. It's almost like if people would just understand, you know, that if you can look at something through somebody else's lens, that you'd start to understand people a little bit more. But so the next one here is actually, I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit with the whole like 3 to 5 friends that you said. So this one is people treat you like you let them. You may lose relationships, but you will never lose true friends.
Right. I heard Oprah say that years ago. People treat you like you let them. And the point of that is so many times we want to be liked and we want to fit into a certain group. And so in doing so, maybe there's 1 or 2 people in that group that are disrespectful to you and all that stuff. And so you just have to make up your mind what you want to be. I personally don't like getting stepped on my toes. I'll be as kind and gracious as I can, but please, you know, stay off my toes. And so there comes a point where you got to stand up and go, listen. And then the true friends out there will go, you know what? I am so sorry. I didn't even realize I was hurting you in any way. Please forgive me. and you go on with a great friendship.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's people that go, you know what, I don't really care whether you liked it or not, and then hopefully you separate,
Right.
because you don't need that bad blood, bad karma, bad anything in your life. So, and that's what that's about, is the true friends will stay with you when you make that correction. And there again, I don't think there's any crime in saying, hey man, that hurts.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
think
that
there's
takes.
any
I
crime
mean, it
in
takes a certain amount of humility to be able to say, "Hey, that was not cool." But
Well, I'm not going to name names here, but one of my better friends, he's younger than I am, and I wouldn't say that he's sheltered, but he kind of was growing up. He didn't really have to worry about much or anything like that. But he himself thinks that he's very weak. And as me hanging out with him, he does want to be liked. But it's like the first thing I taught him is like, I love cartoons. I love video games. I love nerdy stuff. And
like to a disgusting level, like to
But
a
I've
point
always-
where
I
I will
can't
not
help
understand what he's talking about when he gets on a rampage with some
Yeah.
people because
Right.
he's seen like every episode of anime available online.
so and I'm not ashamed to say that. If you don't like me, you don't like me because I like this stuff. But I'm not gonna. He was kind of in the area of like, well, I'm not gonna tell people I like this stuff. I'm not going to do these things around people because they probably won't like me. I go, why? I go, I'm extremely open about this stuff, and maybe it's because of the presence that I put off or the way that I look, but who's going to tell me that I'm dumb for the things that I like? So I kind of took him under my wing, and unfortunately, I am someone who jokes really hard. I'm very, and I don't see it, and that's the problem, until it's too late.
Yeah, it's just a little
And
unfiltered.
I
guess.
will not even sugarcoat it. I was so proud of him when he went to me and he basically just looked me in the eyes and was like, I hate you. And he told me straight up. And I literally had to sit back in my chair and I was like, dude, I am so sorry. Like, I know that I'm hard, but I don't see it when it's happening.
Right.
You have to tell me. And he told me, and ever since then, we've been great.
Because
Because he was upfront with me. He told me,
he did not let
Yeah,
you treat you bad anymore.
But since we started, before that, before we started hanging out, I don't think he would have done that.
Right.
But since I kind of opened his world up to a lot of stuff of him being who he truly is, and that was like my crowning jewel moment when he just stood up to me. I was like, holy shit! I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I couldn't even be mad about it because I was like, all right, dude, I respect you even more now. Like that's fine. I go, I'm sorry. Like if that ever happens again, strike me upside the head, be like, hey, you're taking it too far. I'm like, okay, I'll back off. Sorry.
Right.
Right.
Well, and you can't get mad at somebody for not fixing something that you've never told them to fix.
Yeah.
You know what I
that's
mean?
true, too.
Like if it's a personality trait in somebody, like you're just, a very vocal person,
Mm-hmm.
like the whole non-filtered thing. It is partially up to you to know that that's a trait of yours and to be aware of it.
Yeah.
But it's also up to that other person that if they are offended by something or if they are, they want you to try to fix something, like tell me now, not 3 months from now, where it's so bad and you've been letting it build up for so
it's
long
unfixable,
that it's unfixable.
I've had relationships end for just exactly what you said. Because I offended people and I had no idea that I offended them.
Yeah.
So,
And I feel like I've done that a lot.
yeah.
And I had no clue until like
Yeah, because
way
you're popping off thinking you're funny and you're having fun and all that
exactly.
stuff, and you're offending people and you don't realize
No.
it. And at least in my case, it's happened too many times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that could be true. I think, that, like you said, the true friends are the ones that are going to be able to.
Yeah, because I
Stand
love
up, try to fix that, try to redo it.
Death. And I mean, after that all went down, and he confronted me like that, I've had so much more respect for him and seen things in a different light, and that includes, how I perceive myself now when I go off on those tangents and,
Right.
like you said, think I'm funny and whatever, and not really caring about what other people might be thinking.
So this next one, we'll flip that into a dichotomy of this one. So this next one says that sometimes the best vocabulary is to say nothing at all.
right, because people like RJ and myself, we want to tell people
I'll
where
throw
they're-
myself in that boat.
where they're
I'll
screwing
join
up
you
in
guys that
life,
ship.
and we're going to help you, and you shouldn't buy this because of that, and all that. So well, they're all set to buy it, and they don't appreciate you giving your opinion. And so many times when you get involved in something, you just say nothing.
Yeah.
Because you can't, it's very difficult for somebody to scream at you for saying nothing. When you start popping off with your opinions or you get mad and next thing you're using foul language and all that stuff, and you cannot unring that bell.
Yeah.
Once it's
that's
out
very
there,
true.
the only hope you have is that somebody can forgive you. So when you see it building to a certain level, you go, you know what, this is a good time for me to just shut up.
My mother was a very big advocate of that.
Yeah, detaching. You gotta, like, I tell people to look at yourself in the third person and start wondering, what is the benefit of me continuing down this path right now?
Well, me and my mother are very big on when we're angry, crap just starts spewing from our mouths, whether we mean it, believe it or not.
Right.
And she's like, it was hard for me when I was younger and whatnot, and it's frustrating to the other person when you're in an argument and you don't say anything. But in my head, I'm like, it is better for me not to say anything because I'm going to say something that I truly don't mean. And like you said, it's easier to stop it there than pray to God that the other person can forgive you for God knows what you might say.
Plus, there's a phrase that I coined some time ago, maybe the most profound thing I say today. And maybe none of it's profound at all, but it goes like this. When you win, what have you won? And if you've won nothing, let them win. I had a disagreement
Explain.
I had a disagreement with my 82-year-old mother-in-law about when she started working compared to when I started working. I started working like a man since I was 10 years old. She started working when she was 14. Then we got into the discussion, but they were taking taxes out of her, but they weren't taking it. And my daughter, which has heard me say that saying many times, whispered in my ear, when you win, and I got it. Once I won that argument with my 82-year-old mother-in-law, what have I won?
Just an argument.
I've won nothing.
Yeah. No.
And maybe hurt feelings,
Yeah.
maybe do whatever, but I won nothing.
Yeah.
So let her win because now if we're fighting for our lives or somebody's attacking your family or whatever, now let's go.
Yeah.
Okay? But if it's something that does, so many people fight over such trivial nothings.
Yeah, stupid stuff.
Stupid stuff, and you fight, and years ago I heard about a guy that killed his young child because he took food off his plate. Okay, so he won. The kid didn't get any more food off the plate, but the child died.
Man.
What did he win?
Yeah, what did you win? I have, on a more lighthearted note, there's a buddy of mine, and I'll make sure that he listens to this episode. His name's John Garendi, okay? And so we were down in Knoxville, Tennessee with my other buddy, Michael Pettit, and we were out dancing at this bar called the Cotton Eye Joe, because I love line dancing and two-stepping, and I love wearing my cowboy boots out and about. So we're out, and John ended up getting a little intoxicated, and we're trying to leave the bar, and he's like, this one guy, I don't know, was saying something to a lady, and then John started getting involved, and so me and Mike were DDing because I was at a point where I was on a diet with RJ, and I was trying to cut weight, and I was just
miserable for him.
yeah, and I was like, I'm going to stick true to this, and so we're leaving, and John gets into it, and like you said, like, what have you really won if you decide you're gonna? So the guy starts trying to fight John, right, and then they're all starting to go sideways. And inside of my head, Mike is looking at me because he knows that, I wrestled for an extended period of time. I have a Golden Gloves under my belt, stuff like that. And it's the, sub-novice Golden Gloves at that. But, either way, I've got experience with throwing hands. And I look at the guy, and I'm letting them go back and forth, and they're kind of saying, and at one point, I go, guys, honestly, I am sweating right now. My heart's racing. I'm super. If any of you start actually throwing punches, I think I might poop myself. I was like, I am so scared right now that I have no idea, what I'm going to do if somebody starts throwing a punch. And Mike looks at me like, dude, if somebody starts throwing punches, I'm expecting you to, help out.
Right.
But what I did, the other guy came up to me, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, little buddy. I didn't mean to scare you. I'll leave your friend alone. Y'all have a good rest of your night. I apologize for freaking you out. And I'm like, thanks, man. I was like, I really have no idea what I would do if something went down.
Diversion.
I'm so scared right now. I just want to be able to go home and just end my night on a good note. And he was like, oh, it's okay, man. He patted me on the back. He was like, I'll let you guys get out of here. So he's walking away, with his lats flexed and his shoulders all big. And we get in the car, and Mike looks at me, and he was like, "You son of a gun." He was like, "You just got that guy to walk away without anything going sideways." And he was like, we would have probably murdered him. I was like, "Hey, but he gets to go home happy. We get to go home happy.
Right.
Cops aren't involved.
Right.
Everything, life is good. It just takes sometimes it takes a little bit of humility on your part to just say, I'm the weaker guy here.
Right, absolutely.
Can we not do
Can I
this?
go home, please?
Right. Can we keep this more verbal, less physical?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Right.
That's funny. I'll have to make sure that John listens to this episode. So we got 3 more here that we're going to go over. You kind of alluded to this one. I like this one a lot because this one, I'm curious to see where you come from with it because this is exactly how I think right here. So it's, I will give, and give everything I have until you take. Once you take, you get nothing. Give to the needy, not the greedy.
Fact. Because I told you earlier on, my dad was a very giving guy and all this stuff, and I love helping people. However, there are people in our lives that will see that as a part-time job, and they'll give or they'll take and take and take. Now, I'm going to tell you a sad story about a sister of mine that has since passed away, and I love her deeply. However, she would always, every time she had an issue, "John, can you help me with my car? Can you buy me new tires? Can you buy me a battery? My washer and dryer went out. Can you fix it? Can you?" And so finally, I said to her one day, I said, "Hey, it takes 80 hours a week for my wife and I to make our thing happen. You work 15 hours a week. So tell you what, let's do. You quit drinking, you quit smoking, and you quit gambling. Work 40 hours a week. Come up short, come see me. Until then, don't ask me for anything else."
Why do I feel like that didn't go over too well?
She said, "F you."
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. But
Well,
that
I have people in my family that are exactly like that, and it's true.
I think
And-
everybody kind of has,
or at least knows somebody
somebody
that's,
that's
like
So,
kind of stuck in that rut. Yeah.
Let me find somebody. I used to tell my daughters when they'd go to school, "You find somebody that needs something, let me know." And I'm going to tell you a story that I probably shouldn't because, but one day I was driving with my daughter down the road, and I saw this black gentleman pushing a lawnmower, and he was beyond skinny, and he was sweating profusely, and he had his weed eater, and I could tell he was out cutting grass for a living, but he was pushing his lawnmower as opposed to putting it in a truck or whatever. And I felt something come over me to give him some money. So I pulled up next to him. I said, "Hey, man, here's $5." I gave him. He said, "Why?" I said, "Just because I felt led to do it." I gave him $5. I drove away. And I'm not going to try to flatter myself to think that God speaks to me, but something said, "You got to do better." So I drove around the block, and I found him up in the Trinity Church parking lot, pushing his lawnmower across the hot black asphalt like a hot 95-degree July day,
Sounds terrible. Yeah,
And so I pulled up next to him. I said, "Hey, man, I don't know where you're at spiritually, but I felt like I needed to something spoke to me that I need to give more." And I gave him $20. And this, I'll never forget this as long as I live. He said, "I have a brother that is worse off than me. And I just gave him $20 this morning." If I'd have felt like giving 50, I would. If I'd have felt to give him 10, but the number that I was told, and the beauty on that is this guy was gracious to his brother and gave $20. He ended up earning an extra $5 on the day. He got his 20 back.
20 plus interest.
Yeah, plus, and it was like that moved me. It was profound to think that maybe I was a part of something. For him to say that he gave his brother that was worse off than him 20 that morning, he got his 20 back plus 5. And I just drove away. My daughter and I, we were just like so elated to know that we felt, again, like we did something real small. $20 didn't change our life. We did something real small, but it seemed to matter.
Right.
And away we went.
I think that, I mean, whether you're, Christian, you're Jewish, you're Muslim, you're Hindu, you're a Buddhist, people that the art, my mom calls it the art of the little voice.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, the art of being able to listen to that little internal,
Right.
You have your angel and your demon on your shoulders kind of battling it out constantly. Is like, it's like a lost art. People ignore it. They ignore their gut. And I tell people all the time, they come up to me, they're like, hey, I want advice on this. I don't know where I'm going here. I don't know where I'm going here. I just talked to a senior master sergeant that I'm friends with today that is trying to make a career move. And out of the people that he knows, the connections that he has, he's calling me, to ask where he should go moving forward, which is something deeply profound for me where it's, who am I to give you this advice?
Right.
But he knows that I was like, what is your gut telling you? If you had 3 seconds to decide where you're trying to go, what would you do? And I count down 3, 2, 1. And he gave me an answer. And I was like, is that what your heart and your gut are telling you to do? He was like, yeah, but everybody else is telling me not to. And I was like, well, sometimes you need to listen to that little voice.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, me sitting behind this microphone with RJ and you right now is me irrevocably listening to like this feeling in my, like the pit of my stomach that was telling me that, I need to drop a substantial amount of money on audio equipment and all this other kind of stuff and make it happen because for some reason, I just constantly feel like I need to be out there getting these people's stories recorded. Right. And people look at me all the time like I'm absolutely bonkers. You know what I mean? Obviously RJ believes in me. That's why he's sitting here.
Well, there again, it's not like I gave the guy $1,000, but I promise you this: that little $20 or $25 mattered to him.
And that, circles back to everything that we've talked about so far in the episode. Like, if you're kind to people, you listen to that little voice that you have, and you generally do good things, you'll earn what you give plus interest back. Yeah. People talk, they try to quantify it in these fancy laws of, like, the law of attraction and, a positive energy equals positive return and all of these different sayings across, eras and eras, all the way from Socrates and Plato way back to, the Buddhist monks to, Catholic doctrine and everything else. All of these different places across the spectrum of the human existence constantly say what you put out into the world is what will be returned to you. Mm-hmm. Right. Whether you believe it's God giving it back to you or you believe that the Earth Mother is giving it back to you.
Whatever it is.
It's weird how that tends to happen regardless of where people are on a spectrum. It's just, generally the more kind a person is, the more kindness is returned to them. Mm. And it's like you said, that $20, it may not impact your day very much, but it'll totally change somebody else's perspective of life.
You never really know on scale wise what can absolutely turn someone's day around.
Well, I remember, and I told you this story when we were at Denny's. I was taking care of a patient, and the brother was in the room, with this patient, and he looked at me at the end of taking care of this patient and said, I dropped out of nursing school. But watching you take care of this patient today makes me like I'm going to go back to school. Yeah. Like I want to be a nurse because I want to be able to take care of people and care for people how I watched you care for the patient today.
I'm sorry.
You're good. And all of that was just an accumulation of little things like, hey, do you guys need a cup of coffee? Let's get this diet order changed. It's just little, like a smile, you know what I mean? Or allowing somebody to hold your hand or crying, like trying to hold back tears in the room as they're like telling you about a person's life story. It's those little human interactions, which is what we're trying to get to the root of here on the Apex, is just human interaction with other people. And I'm going to exercise my vocabulary of silence now because I feel myself starting to ramble. But
no, you're good.
Well, one thing is, this is really cool. I tell my daughters especially, but people, life's a contact sport. The more people you know, the better life goes for you. Yeah. It's a contact sport. So, but you can't ever I can't help you hoping to get something back. I have to help you out of the goodness of my heart and let it go. or else I don't think you get the benefit from it. Anyway, so we're in Gettysburg several years ago. My kids were young, and I had my truck with my camper in the back of the truck, and we had just finished, and we're ready to head to our next stop. Go to turn on the truck, and my entire dash is dead. And I said, man, oh man, I'm screwed. I have no idea. I need gas, to see how much gas I have. I need my speedometer. And I whispered a prayer. And I don't want to make this like all spiritual, but I whispered a prayer. I said, God, I help everybody I can. Boy, it'd be nice if somebody would come by and help me. This is a true story. We're in the parking lot at Gettysburg, and I had the hood up. And people could have went any way around our truck. This guy walked right up to my door within 2 minutes. And he said, man, I'm no good at the mechanics, but if it's electrical, I can help you. I said, that's crazy because...
This isn't a mechanical problem. This is an electrical issue.
Right. So I said, well, it's my dash. It went out.
You're like, well, how convenient.
And he looked and whatever, and he goes, I know what it is. And he drove a Ford Windstar van. He went and got the fuse that heated his seats that he didn't need in the summer, brought the fuse back, put it in my fuse box. I'm such a goofball. I didn't even know where the fuse box was.
Yeah. Hey, I wouldn't know either.
And so he pulled the thing out there, put the new fuse, and the next thing, whoop, my whole dash came up.
What are the chances?
And down, right, what are the chances? And I just texted him this Christmas, wished him a Merry Christmas, and he's like, I can't even believe you even remember me.
Right.
And I said, dude, I tell that story all the time.
People tell me that all the time. So I know RJ's brain kind of works like this too, which is part of the reason why we get along so well. Is we can make obscure references to random movie quotes, song lyrics, pretty much anything. It's like we both just like read encyclopedias for no reason as kids, kind of thing. So it's like
a bunch of useless facts.
yeah,
up here.
your head is just full of useless information. But I remember stuff about people where it's like, oh, I remember having this conversation with this person in my truck at the red light at North Main and Market, on this day, and they look at me like, I met you one time. How do you know who my mom's name is? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm not creepy. Like, it just sticks for some reason. So stuff like that where, like, I've texted people on New Year's, and they're like, oh, like, I haven't heard from you in forever. Like, I can't believe that. They're texting me, like, new phone, who dis? Right. I'm like, my bad. Yeah, we met here. Like, this is what, you're like, oh, cool. How's it going? Yeah. And that's been... inevitably kind of helped open up a lot of connections with this. So this last one here, I made this one the last one on purpose because I think that, if you kind of picked up on a structure where it was like kindness, the 7 to 12 seconds from the burning car, all this other kind of stuff. So this one, I combined two of them together.
All right.
And one of them is your W's. And this final one is the don't confuse movement with progress. So his W's are work will win when wishing won't.
Right.
Okay. So that's the first half of this last piece. And then we'll explore the second half, which is the final one that we're doing, and it's the don't confuse movement with progress.
And I hope we can touch on the 7 to 12 seconds also.
Yeah, we could do that for sure.
So, me included, you sit and you wish that things will happen, A friend of mine and I used to throw the football all the time, and he'd say, wouldn't it be cool if Tom Landry would drive down our street, and he would see us throwing the football and want us to play football. But on Brow Street in Greentown, Ohio, that wasn't going to happen. We could wish it, but it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you want it to happen, you need to work. You need to figure out what your bench needs to be to play this position. You need to figure out what your 40 needs to be to play this position. You need to figure out how many, catches you need to have out of 100 to make this position. And if you work and work and work, you will normally get where you're going. So work will win when wishing won't. A friend of mine, had a great football career, and he used to have that on his wall. And when I read it the first time, it's like, man, that is so profound, so true. And I've seen it happen both ways for me. The things I've wished for and didn't work hard enough for didn't come true. Things I've worked for did. But it's important to understand that everybody goes, what's the magic? What's the trick to being successful and having? It's real simple. Work hard. Work will win when wishing won't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, we were talking about this with the episode that we recorded 2 weeks ago, is that episode was 4 months in the works. This episode with you, has been 3 or 4 months in the works too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's, constant effort on my part trying to when you approached me about the blog writing, trying to figure out the best possible way to help you get to where you want to go. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of effort now on RJ's part where I'm annoying the crap out of him 24/7 with like, hey, I have this idea. Hey, we should do this. Hey, what do you think about this?
Other, just to be fair.
Yeah, but it's constant, and I work odd hours, so I get off of work at 3 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I'm up for 3 or 4 hours after a 12-hour shift, writing stuff down, prepping stuff, reading, trying to make sure that I'm, good with an interview for a person that people are like, oh, they sit behind microphones and record episodes. But
like that time I texted you at 4 a.m., knowing you'd read it some 5 or 6 hours later, and you were driving to Toledo.
I was driving to, driving to Dayton.
Yeah.
I was driving to Dayton to work.
Just happened. So next thing we're chatting on the phone, and, why was I up? Shouldn't have been. Why was he up? Shouldn't have been, but it just happened.
Yeah, that was the same thing with Eversole.
Yeah.
Me and the guy that we do the clothing company with, I talked to him at 2 o'clock in the morning because I called him on a whim, was going to leave a message, and he was up. But those conversations, there's no other way to explain them except they were meant to happen.
Yeah.
And
that's still work. Conversations are still work. I feel like in today's day and age, it's people, like I said, are afraid to have conversations. It's hard to keep an organic conversation going.
Well, it's like a lost skill.
Yeah, and having those connections and being able to, effortlessly get your point across and talk to people and, receive their point and actually process it and put it to use, it's work.
Yeah, active listening is for sure work.
But, with your point, I feel like a lot of people, they want and they want and they want and they want, but then when it comes to push comes to shove, they just stop. And my parents kind of always told me, like, if you ever get to that point, then was it something you really even wanted in the first place that bad? Because if it was, it wouldn't matter what you had to do.
Right. So let's phase into the second half of that, which is don't confuse movement with progress.
Well, because so many people, it seems like they just do stuff, but don't advance the cause. There again, I tell my daughters all the time, just keep the ball moving forward. You don't have to kick it like a long way. Just don't let it go back. Just keep moving it forward. And sooner or later, you'll get to your goal. So many people just chase the ball around. They don't get
it. It's like running in circles.
Yeah, they go backwards and forwards, and they don't get what they want. And maybe it's because they didn't sit down with somebody and say, listen, I need a business plan. I need to know what I should do, A, B, C, D. But so many people have good intentions, me included, that you just kind of keep doing it, but you don't really get to move forward to get to your ultimate goal of whatever it is you're chasing.
Yeah, you're treasure hunting without a map.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah, and you can just,
You know what the goal is, you know where the X marks the spot, kind of is visually inside of your head, but you have no visual representation or any idea of how to get there, so you just kind of walk in circles.
That's a great example. I remember when I was a kid,
upon it.
I got a pan. I wanted to go pan for gold. A friend of mine says, where are you going to go pan for gold? I said, down there at Yoder's Creek. No gold there. You can pan all day long.
You might get some crawdads.
Yeah, but you're not getting no gold.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a plan and move forward. So,
okay, so we'll
let me tell you the 7 to 12
we'll
seconds.
end. I was going to say we'll end it out on the 7 to 12 seconds, and then what I like to do is at the end of the episodes, we kind of give, before we get into the post reel stuff, and RJ has some announcements and all that other kind of stuff. We'll kind of, I like to open up the floor to the guest. Not that the floor hasn't been open to you this entire episode, but it is your final, without any guidance from me, any guidance from RJ, your final, just what is on your heart, what's on your mind that you want to offer the listeners of the Apex as your final parting words. So we'll do your 7 to 12 seconds, and then after that, you have the floor.
Well, then, again, with my daughters, when they were young, this is just one example, but they had a little boy, please forgive me, I don't know his name, and if I knew it, I wouldn't say it over the air anyway. But there was a little boy that was in a wheelchair, and he was a big Cleveland Browns fan. And so all the kids, I would go in to see my daughters at school, and all the kids would just usher by and say nothing to him. So I said to the girls, hey, girls, did you say anything to, we'll call him Billy? No, I didn't say anything to him. maybe because they felt a little awkward because he's in a wheelchair or whatever. I said, listen, go up there and tell him. It takes 7 to 12 seconds. And you go like this. Hey, Billy, how was your weekend? Good. Did the Cleveland Browns win? Oh, yeah, they won. They had a great game. Good. Man, Billy, that's really great. I love your hat. I hope you have a good day. See ya. It's about 7 to 12 seconds.
Yeah.
But guess what? Billy will remember that the rest of his life, that somebody took a moment to take interest in him and just an honest, sincere conversation, just a short conversation. And there again, there's no crime in being kind. And it takes such a short amount of time to get that done. And they would time me. Okay, girls, and I'd give them another example. And every one of them came in at about 7 to 12 seconds. I'm not saying give them a speech. Next thing you're invading their time. They got to get to class and whatever. But it just doesn't take that long walking through the door at a restaurant. Hey, ma'am, to some elderly lady that you can tell she spent time with her hair and all. Hey, I think your hairdo looks awesome today. Yeah. Really, thank you so much. That's 3 seconds. You go in and she tells her friend, did you hear that guy? He told me how my hair looked, There's no crime in that.
I mean, and even without even having to go out of your way, I think that I was talking to my friend the other day where it's sad that politeness is now a commodity and not a standard.
Dude, the thing that makes me crazy is when you go thank you and everybody goes, no problem. What's wrong with saying thank you? You're welcome. In the old days, you say thank you. You're welcome. Don't worry about it. You got it. No problem.
Right.
Nobody just says, hey, you're welcome,
Yeah.
So,
or even
I do say no problem a lot now that you say that.
Right.
But,
everybody does.
Yeah.
Well, but it's like those minor psychological cues where, I mean, you're in conversation. It baffles me how rude people can be to servers or bartenders or anything like that. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
I guess the reason I say it is because I was very much raised with that type of, I'm a very empathetic person. I feel what someone else feels from across the room. And I've always been like that since I was a kid. And
that's why we're so telepathic.
my mother picked up on that. So when someone's down for whatever reason, I could be in the room and not know who they are, but all of a sudden I have this impending feeling of sorrow come over me. And so she's like, if you have that ability to know when someone's going through something like that, and it can be as easy as you said, go over, open the door for them, ask them how their day was doing, show them, why not do it? And my mother loves doing this because as she gets older, she loves Perkins and Bob Evans and a whole bunch of restaurants for breakfast. We always go out to breakfast on the weekends. She will pick out a little old couple every weekend and pay for their dinner and not tell them.
Right.
And she gets so excited about it. She'll get in the car and be like, "Oh, did you see them? They had no clue that it was us."
Right. Right.
And that explains why your
and
sister is the way she is.
I've grown up with that type of mentality, and so when I say, "Hey, it's no problem," it is really. It's no problem on my I love doing it. It's not like, hey, you telling me thank you or praising me for going out of my way and doing this. I feel better when I'm in my car by myself driving away from this situation and being like, I just made that person's day. Or, that they looked really bummed, but when I left them, they had a smile on their face.
Well, and that goes back to at the beginning, where we talked about
the kindest free.
Yeah. And you end up with saying, you just want to help out. And I always like to help out the people that have no way of paying me back.
Yeah.
They give to the needy, not to the greedy. If you have no way of A, knowing who I am, and B, having any way to pay me back, I want to help that person every time.
I thought about this when we were talking a little bit earlier, but the when someone asks for assistance, that's when they stop getting it. I feel like a lot of the people who need the help most are the ones that aren't asking for it.
Most of the time, yeah.
I mean, yeah, look at all we kind of started our missions. Me and him started talking about this because, the Apex kind of started after all the suicides happened at Perry, where he was on the school board. And those, outside of, high school kids, where that was a really tragic time, you look at the Robin Williams, or these really famous people that seem to have everything. And I know that they show these montages of people where they're all smiling, they're in public, they're looking happy, they're having everything. You know what I mean? It's the people that aren't asking for help that sometimes have the deepest wounds. That need just that 7 to 12 seconds of, hey man, like how was your day?
And plus, that's one of the things too, where like I'm never intimidated to talk to anyone, from Jimmy Haslam to a guy at the grocery store, because here's what I believe: there's something in these people that appear to have everything. There's something in their life that they're dealing with, and so I go into that conversation empathetic, knowing, man, I hope I can be kind. I hope I can bring a good thought. I hope I can relieve the burden for just a moment, because I don't know what it is, but more times than not, they're dealing with something heavy in their family, something personal, some sin that's about to come out, some crime, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something. And I just want to be the one to go, hey, I got no judgment. Just want to say hello, see how you doing. Good to see you. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah. It's as easy as that. If I had to say something to wrap up this whole discussion, it's that I feel a lot of people, myself included, like when my friend stood up to me, their brain just needs to be rewired real quick. And that is the nice thing about all of your quotes here. Every point that we went over, hearing that from someone else, when you put it in the short context of it takes 7 to 12 seconds to change someone's life, some people are in the mentality, well, I got to do this and I got to, do all this stuff and this is how I'm going to change everybody's lives. But, that's great if you have that, that long-standing plan to do good for the better man throughout your lifetime. But in between those moments, you have those 7 to 12 seconds that could do as much, if not more. And you don't know the ripple effect of that. Right. And I think these bullet points and getting these messages out to people to be able to, have somebody who does want to do good, but doesn't have the means to do good for other people or don't know how, that these, little snippets can, flip their brain in an opposite direction to be like, hey, the other day, I literally could have just went up to that, that person and, asked them this, said this to them, and that could have changed their whole day. And then with that, carry on the information and pass it down to other people like my parents did with me, that it's these little things that are possible to make a massive difference.
Yeah, you have more opportunities to change somebody's life 7 to 12 seconds day in and day out than you do with those major things that are going to happen.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people think it's got to be this real grand design that is going to, cure this or, help out the greater
everybody
good.
wants to cure cancer.
If everybody did, one thing for 7 to 12 seconds every day, it'd be a whole different story.
Yeah, it'd be a whole different planet.
Yeah, and just like I think there's so many people that are their confidence is trapped inside themselves, or they have no confidence.
Yeah.
Just like drinking. How many times have we all heard, man, I got to go get a couple drinks in me before we can go to this party or whatever.
Liquid courage.
Yeah,
right,
liquid courage.
Instead of just being like, just confident going in and having fun, because they got to have something to take the edge off, because so many people are just like, nervous. So anyway.
I hate nothing more than seeing someone who's not confident in being themselves.
Me too, man. Me too.
It's rough.
Me too.
And I feel that. I was like that for a long time,
I think everybody at a point, there's some aspect or something about everybody's self that they're afraid to, but it is very freeing when you are like, hey, I'm only going to have 3 to 5 friends, solid friends my entire life, and they're going to like me regardless of who I am, so why not just be me?
There's a saying I say all the time. Everybody has a limp.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you can see it or you can't, everybody has a limp, And, I've never been a great speller. And it's been a difficult thing, and I wish I was better at it. But I also know that, that's one of my limps. But I know that whenever I walk up to somebody else, they have something else. Maybe they have, an alcohol problem. Maybe they have cancer growing inside them. Maybe they have, you go, well, listen, we all have something, so let's just, try to accept people for who they are. And the less judgmental we can be, usually the better everybody gets along.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
Well, the floor is yours.
I really don't have anything else to add. This has been a good time. I appreciate what you guys are trying to do. I just hope that the old saying, if we can just help one person, I don't go for that. I hope we can help a bunch of people. Hope
Yeah, I like that mentality. There we go.
Hopefully somebody gets their eyes open or goes, you know what? I'm not a great speller either. I'm not a great reader. I'm not a great, whatever. And very few people want to admit that, but
I'm not a good reader.
at least admit it. At least admit it to yourself and go, you know what? That's my thing.
Yep.
But you know what? I'm damn good to people in different situations. I try to be helpful. I try to be kind. I try to be gracious. So maybe that'll overshadow my limp, And so that's just.
Yeah. I think that so I'll just kind of end it, and then RJ will have, there's a couple of announcements RJ would like to make, and, a shout out to a previous episode that we had. But essentially, I think that right there, that concept, there's a quote that comes to mind from Albert Einstein that says, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its entire life believing that it's stupid. And everybody's got a talent, Mm-hmm. Yeah. I may be a monkey and I'm good at climbing trees, and RJ's a fish and he's good at swimming. I probably would not, do well in a pool, and as a fish he'd probably be horrible at climbing a tree. But in our elements, we're both geniuses. Yeah. So, RJ, take it away.
Basically, we want to thank our guest today. We had a great time. I had a great time talking. We've never met before. I know him and Jan have had extensive conversation, but I feel as if I have a great understanding of who you are and your character, and I loved everything that we talked about today. I believe I second basically everything that you've talked about, and I believe strongly that, kindness leads into kindness leads into kindness. And if we keep with that message, if we can help you set up your blog and vice versa and get your message out there, I full-heartedly believe there's a lot of good you can bring to a lot of people.
Well, let me just say that my message, more than all we've talked about today, was about the incredibly importance of being good fathers. Mm-hmm. And taking care of your children and doing the right thing and being men as far as treating your family right and stepping up and just doing the right thing as a father. So maybe that'd be for another time. Maybe that's what I'll blog about. But that's something that I think is absolutely critical. And if you look at the problems in the world today, almost all of them you can trace back to they should have had a better father.
I can agree with that. So, for everybody listening, look out for the blog posts that are going to be coming out on JJD Thoughts website. And then after that, look for his own blog post after we get him all set up and his ball rolling. On top of that, we want to thank everybody who is currently supporting us on Patreon and everybody who is enjoying the show. And if you want to, help us keep producing the content that we are now, it is greatly appreciated, and you can find that through our website and links to our Patreon. Any little bit helps. We're just trying to bring out high-quality content to you guys, try to push people's messages, and, just grow a better community in general. On top of that, if you liked what you heard here today and you're a first-time listener, we've got plenty of other episodes from, about midway through 2018. Our spotlight episode, this one, I want to talk about Mike Eversole, who is currently one of our partners in crime here at the Apex. But our last episode, our first episode of 2019, was with him. We go very in depth with his story and his life and how he came to owning his own clothing company, how he got linked up with us, and how we want to move forward and bring his high quality product with our high quality products that we're putting out, and hopefully you guys can give that a listen or any of our other episodes, and join us back here again here in another couple weeks for another great guest.
Alrighty, guys. So if you want to check out the Patreon, all you have to do is go to theapexpodcast.com, click on Join the Family. That'll bring up a page where you can click on Become a Patron. And really all we're asking is $1, $3, $5 a month to help us pay our bills. Other than that, I look forward to bringing another guest on the show and hearing your guys' feedback for this episode. Until next time, I'm Jan Almasy. You heard RJ. Peace out. We will talk to you on the next episode of The Apex.